Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'd like to invite you to think about this question of whether happiness is worth pursuing. I know it's a very complex question. It's kind of silly to try to answer it within a 10-minute video, but if you've clicked on this video, chances are you've thought about this question at some point in your life, and maybe you're able to find clarity, maybe you haven't been able to. Either way, I hope that this video can be a tool for you to think with, and hopefully it'll bring some realization or new ideas into how you approach this question in the future. First, I want to talk about a very common misconception about how happiness is pursued. In philosophy, there is an idea called the pleasure paradox, which states that actions that deliberately and consciously seek pleasure often does not yield most pleasure. What's wrong with how we pursue happiness is that we confuse happiness with pleasure. The path that's required to obtain pleasure is often simple, it's direct, and quite often transactional. Pleasure doesn't require much to obtain, but requires a lot to sustain. So often we see people who mistaken pleasure with happiness think that they're pursuing happiness, where in fact they're attempting to sustain the pleasure. So we often hear people say that happiness is a commitment to a state of mind. It's a commitment to act a certain way, think a certain way, or see the world in a certain way. I would say that I largely agree with that, and I do think that happiness is not a goal to pursue, it's a mindset. But in terms of what the core value of happiness is, I think I want to extend on it a little bit. I think I see happiness as a byproduct. Instead of saying that it's the result of seeing, acting, and thinking a certain way, I would probably say that it's a byproduct of it rather than a direct result. A byproduct is an incidental result that is produced in the act of doing something else, meaning that it's unintentional, unconscious. It's not something that can be manufactured intentionally, but rather an indirect consequence of pursuing something else that's meaningful. Talk about meaningful things opens up a whole new can of worms. So obviously meaning is subjective to the individual. The process of setting a goal, putting in hours, days, years to achieve that goal, and in the process of getting there, overcoming challenges, obstacles, realizing and learning more about yourself while developing yourself, or engaging yourself in activities that induce a state of flow. The state of flow is like when you're so intensely engaged in something that you lose track of time. You stop noticing the air particles that float around you. You stop noticing the noises that are in your environment. And so that is when you're in the state when you're only focused on the task at hand. Personally, I find it very meaningful to connect with other people, to engage in conversations that stir up my emotions, even though those conversations may be difficult, whether emotionally or intellectually. I always feel like when I am engaged in a deep conversation with another individual, I'm being motivated to speak honestly and truthfully about myself. So in a nutshell, I see happiness as recognizing and affirming my personal identity through action and reaction, rather than denying or suppressing it. We are all thrown into this world with societal values and standards and what's commonly accepted as norms. And if we don't consciously reject some of those values, we are in a sense letting it grow to become bigger and bigger and bigger. Our identity, which is most genuine to ourselves, slowly becomes smaller and smaller and smaller because we don't allow it to come out. And so this can be manifested in the way we think, the way we talk, and the way we act. So affirming is essentially being okay with your own identity and accepting yourself. And of course, that's not an easy thing to do. Another way to look at happiness is awareness of constant learning, engaging yourself in activities that align with your core value, and the awareness of a forward momentum at work pushing you in a direction, whether it's general or specific. Of course, I have to end this video with a couple of quotes from my favorite philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche. What is good? Everything that heightens a feeling of power in man, the will to power itself. What is happiness? The feeling that power increases, that a resistance is overcome. Joy is only a symptom of the feeling of attained power. One does not strive for joy. Joy accompanies. Joy does not move. Happiness is not in itself a tangible, quantifiable goal. Happiness is something that comes organically with meaningful work. So simply put, to be happy is to pursue work that you find meaningful, and that within it you can find peace and motivation and happiness as a sustained state of mind. Thank you for watching this video.